at least $1 billion in direct awards. Direct awards only mean I don't get 5 of you to compete for a contract. I just decide which of you I'm giving it to. I've never seen that happen before. What difference does that make to you? Well, if somebody's getting a $100 million contract to do seawalls and bridges, but truly you could get that done for $75 million. That's $25 million no longer available to buy ambulances, medication, to pay small contractors. So yes, that issue has existed before where government has had some problems paying some bills. I have not seen it like this ever before, nor have I seen a select group of people being empowered before. And so what would we do different? We want as many people as possible to eat. And you can trust us that we are going to work for the majority to have a shot at this contract, and this isn't going to one particular person because they are political friendly. And so what will make us different? I believe you know us. Part of judging what someone will do in the future is to assess what they have done before. I was in the Ministry of Agriculture and Great Resources, 3.5 years Ministry of Youth Sports and Culture. I don't think you've heard a peep about me ever playing with a contract trying to get it. Person A and person B deserved it. And you've never heard that I laid off one single person who worked in the ministry. You've never heard of Crazy Thompson. The bottom line is, I think this is a new breed of leadership that we will need to
In understanding this whole bill, the ombudsman, would it include the opportunity for, and this is one of the questions, for fairness, confidentiality, accountability in public and private sector, also provides a forum for citizens to report mistreatment by government agencies?
We're going to implement and follow the law. That is what the law does. It allows you to make the requisite complaints, and in a transparent way, the ombudsman is able to address it. I believe in any new system you're putting in place, you will have some concerns about the law also protects private information and is put in place. Whistleblowers should be protected, but again, the person who is being accused, their reputation will also be protected until it is verified that the accusation is correct. So they will be protected against malicious complaints being issued by the public. So we will follow the law in short.
But specifically, will that bill give the average Joe Blow on the street the privilege, right, protection, and possibly sensible results to complain about poor treatment
by any public agency? Yes, it will. Yes, it will. No one will be about it. Most of you are complaining online right now, anyways. But the truth is, we will protect you with the law. To be quite serious about it.
One of the challenges we've had is we complain but nothing is done.
And that's
especially when it comes to government agencies.
Correct.
And that's been the history of our country, regardless as to who was in power. But that's been the history. And in light of what you understand to be the timeline, if you became the Prime Minister and definitely becomes the government, when would this particular bill be enacted?
Within the first year, I indicated both the Freedom of Information Act as well as the Ombudsman will be put in place.
In light of the increase of children being born on the spectrum, what is the government's, what is your government's plan, or your party's plan if you become the government, to increase the educational system to where it can accommodate children on the spectrum adequately?
So I've had a history for some of you who have worked with REACH before. You will be aware that I volunteered in the past in New Providence and then sought to offer assistance when I first moved to Grand Bahama. So I'm absolutely committed. Already I am now working with some families, and I want to say this publicly. We've reached out to Trevor Woodward, an architect, to get some assistance as we begin to look at designing a facility that does at least two things. One, creates space for adult children who are on the spectrum, because it is very expensive and taxing on a family, some of which are led by a single female, to take care of that child, because there are very few facilities nationwide that cater to adult children who are facing autism or some other disability. The next thing is there has to be additional scholarships given to educators that have interest in being involved in special education, because there are insufficient educators in the traditional schools. And then the government has to offer additional grants, educational grants, so that parents who cannot afford to put their child in one of the special schools that are expensive can now afford to do so. And so we are committed, again, to advancing the work, not that we hope to get into, but the work several of us are involved in right now.
In any what we call civilized society and growing society, two things are almost staple: fire trucks and ambulances. What is the plan for the country, but specifically for Burma, when it comes to two of those fundamental things that we would consider to be a staple part of a growing society?
I'll start with the fire department. We intend to introduce an independent fire department that is not under the Royal Bahamas Police Force Commissioner's control. We ought to have a director who's in charge of the fire department that does not report to the Commissioner of Police, where, as we have had just recently, where you have a choice being made between taking scarce resources to get or fix cars versus to fix or purchase a fire truck. So they ought to have their own budget and their own team, and they ought to be properly resourced. So that's one of the things that we do.
May I ask a question then? So from your answer then, the decision to purchase these items are not left up to the cabinet or parliament, it's left up then to the fire department, the police department.
They are properly resourced, and the fire department and its team determine its priorities. And we already know one of those two priorities is to have the requisite amount of vehicles. So yes, so that's one of the things that we do.
So that's out of the government's hand.
No, it's not entirely out of the government. The government ultimately is responsible for the budget, but you are creating an entirely new structure in order to manage it. The second thing is we should not rule out the value of volunteer fire workers, firefighters. And so, again, when we had the fires recently, a number of you in the room indicated you had never been contacted to use the resources you had. We used trucks that nobody had ever called to ask, sanitation and others, can we use your water truck? So we believe that there's opportunity not just in Grand Bahama, but throughout the Family Islands also for volunteer firefighting teams. We should also, I'm just throwing this in, so let me just be clear. A number of you that are involved in heavy equipment, who are heavy equipment operators, right now the government has forced you to go to a company they decided on to get your certification and to renew your license over and over at a cost that is prohibitive, too high for you. We will interrupt that system. There are more service providers. And why is it relevant for this subject? Because you would recall in our code, there was an issue where there was a question on whether a volunteer firefighter can actually handle equipment to put out fires. And so just even the certification of who drives is an issue, and the hands of government is in the weeds of that. We want to end that. We believe government officials are facilitators. We are not desiring to be in all areas of your life. This administration, the way it does government is in too many different areas. Our role is to move the impediments out of your way as an entrepreneur, as a non-governmental organization. We are here to help you, not to be so large that every decision you make, you have to come back to government, which causes us to flex our political power. We don't want to get people.
In the Bahamas, it is extremely difficult to do business. It is extremely complicated. It is extremely nonchalant. we get bounced from one particular government ministry to another government ministry, only to be told when you get to the second one, they can't help you until the first one helps you. The first one tells you we can't do anything until you get something from the second one. And then we get demands from the government system to produce something that can't be produced because A sends us to B can't help us because A didn't help us. We get frustrated. Then our paperwork is strangled because the system doesn't give us a certificate of good standing. How do you fix that?
I mentioned earlier in my presentation that if you have a query with NIV, you're not one of the persons on this long list which we have in our possession. People just don't pay. Still, you get appointed to key position. If you're not one of those persons, you have a query, we are going to give you your license. It is a provisional license that allows you to operate. However, if the investigation shows that you truly do owe something, then we are pausing that until you have sorted that out. Unless, for example, your contract is with government. So before you get your next pay, we deduct all of that check, whatever is owed to government. So that's one thing. The second thing is, if you are renting a building from someone, we will not make you a compliance officer to make sure all their records are straight before you are able to rent from them. Where we sat, Crazy and I, in cabinet, we said to our colleagues, and our colleagues completely agree, we should not have one department holding up another department from serving Canadian citizens. What we should do is flag the issue, identify it, send it to them, say this person came to apply, we took care of that, but we just want to know, let you know that they came to us applying for so and so. So those are things that the government can make a simple policy decision, and some of these headaches were there. The final thing I'll say on this is a thing called in governance a sunset clause. It means that if you apply for a thing, and it's supposed to take a week, we say we put a 7-day or 5 working day sunset clause on that. If the thing is not resolved by that government department within the week, consider what you applied for approved. You can use that also. You can use that also.
So right there, who is going to do that?
The system is going to do that. So I'll give you an example. A guy is traveling, or a lady is traveling from Switzerland to Colombia. Someone in the Bahamas says, I have a project, I want you to come and meet my people. They decide while traveling, I'm going to stop over and attend this meeting. It's a working meeting. They then apply online for a turnaround that should be 24 hours. So it's going to take them 24 hours because where they're traveling to get here. They should be able to apply and get a response in the system in 24 hours so that this thing does not happen. We've had many business persons come here to do business, and they are detained at the airport and sent back. I sat with an investor today, said he was never so embarrassed. He had an executive of a bank come over for a working meeting and didn't lie, and he was going with his cousin. He was going to a working meeting and was detained in the airport and sent back. So those are things we'll apply a sunset clause to. If it isn't processed within the 24-hour period, consider it approved. But those are the kinds of things that we will do.
But I give you a scenario that's not as grandiose as that business person. You go to national insurance, you pay what you're supposed to pay, their system plays stupid, you have to say to them, they send you to the bank to get what you need to get done, when it's their responsibility to get done what needs to get done. So I want to know, when a situation like that arises, who is going to override that system so by the end of the day or by tomorrow at sunrise, I can continue to conduct my business. This scenario is very easy, and most of us in here won't get looking at it. Because we're the headless. But I'm talking about the behavior goes and does what he or she is supposed to do, and the system plays crazy, or personalities play crazy. Who would we call to pick up the phone to get an override on that in this Bahamas government system?
Obviously, depending on the ministry, it's a different person. I would only say we want to create, in business in the Bahamas, a culture where up and down the spectrum, permanent secretaries, undersecretaries, directors, all of the line staff understand. We are here to facilitate the persons who are paying our bills in the public service. We work for you. That's why we have the team. We work for you. And that's the kind of culture we wish to create in the country. Let me make it personal. I represent, because of your good graces, my person. The culture we try to create is to say, when people come in for help, we don't want them frustrated. Let's try to correct it. If they complain, don't take it personal. If they fall in and cuss me, don't take it personal. When they have done something about return the call and I deserve, I don't want to say people sin, but I deserve it. So what I'm saying is we want to create a culture in the Bahamas, in the ministries, that people appreciate that these folks who are coming in, they are not our problem. They are our employers. That's the culture we want. And so whoever it is in the different ministry who is responsible for appealing to, we want them to have that kind of attitude. We will modernize general quarters. If you are serious about serving the people, the public service ought to be a wonderful place to work. If you don't want to serve the Indian people,
what is the, if you were part of the government government, what is a brief outlay of your plan to remove the national average from D or whatever it is to something a little more palatable and reasonable?
So one of the things I mentioned earlier, there are several products of Hawksville, I inside there was a time where we recognized that people learn differently and they have different interests. So we have to also be careful how we are assessing our children. So one of the things we want to improve upon and expand is technical and vocational education. There are some persons who that's what they already know what their career path is. Now, we should not create a situation where that's all that they do with the basic math and English, but we can help them specialize early. We should also make technical and vocational subjects available as options for academic students as well. I had the wonderful fortune of meeting with several persons who now run private schools in the for well-to-do families who said their children there on their own scholarship. And all of them recognize vocational subjects are extremely important for building a well-rounded person. It isn't only academics. So we want to change the view that all of us have of education. It isn't just those who excel in math, music, physics, etc., but those who excel in carpentry, and home economics. Because what it's doing is humanizing all of us. It's helping our emotional intelligence. Forgive me, Pastor, I disassociate you with what I'm about to say. If the CEO of the country had that emotional intelligence, he would not have frowned on the behaviors who write books, who recite poetry, who work at McDonald's, who work as a security officer, who work as a B-class welder, because he would recognize the dignity in all work, and persons from those occupations can become the CEO of the Commonwealth of Bahamas. So they really have to study law.
What is the reasonable plan? I know you mentioned a few that you respect earlier to either maintain or reduce the cost of living, generally the cost of work of living.
In terms of food, everyone in this room that has a yard of your own, you should be planting more fruit-bearing trees or vegetable-bearing trees than ornamentals for decoration. So a part of reducing your cost is imagine if all of your garnishes or much of your garnishes and seasonings, in 30 days we were able to reduce most of the seasonings that we consume. In 60 days you will reduce most of what you consume in terms of salad crop. So there isn't a need for us to unleash an agricultural revolution in Grand Bahama. And we can do so. We have that land in Grand Bahama to do so. one of the things. The second, today I released a statement asking the government to put a cap on the cost of gas right now before we feel the impact of this war in the Middle East. In that way, people at the pump, they're not going to be affected, and the government itself has a predictable revenue it's going to earn from the charges that they put on gasoline, the revenue that they earn from gasoline. So there are things that government can do in cutting what is due to the government. And you don't want to do it at a level that kind of begins to hurt the government's ability to pay its bill. You want to just cap it so that fluctuations internationally in the oil market doesn't increase your light bill, because that cost is passed on to you, by the way. When it goes up, the surcharge is on your bill, whether here or in Nassau. So that's the second thing we can do to, again, reduce the cost of gasoline at the pump and electricity in the house. As it relates to rental, as I said before, we ought to work, governments ought to work with potential landlords so that if we can help you drive down the cost, you are in a position to cap the rent that you're charging. Like give you a $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 savings on a duplex or a fourplex that you're building. You can't come back to me and explain why you're charging $1,500 or $2,000 for a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath. So social housing, which is nothing new, but we have several experts in the room who design social housing. We should be able to affect the affordability of rent by using crown land government taxes to again lower the cost for the average family.
Has there ever been, historically in the Bahamas, has any government ever put a cap on the increase of gasoline?
Yes, governments have intervened in the gasoline fight before.
But
we
tax
have not seen it
or cap on the price?
Cap on the back, yes.
The cap on the back itself, but not a cap, as you were saying,
Yes.
on the actual price of the gas.
Right, yes. I got my point.
So that'll be historical then, if that happens, and even the government.
It's so tough, I don't think that's anything for us to jump up and down. It's a simple fix. It's a simple fix. We're going to do so many noteworthy things that they don't want to be newsworthy. And with your help, I'm going to bring
Senior citizens have a fixed monthly income. Can an avenue be created through social services to receive a monthly voucher for assistance?
It already exists. I mean, many senior citizens can. The problem that we have is that many senior citizens were taken off the food program in order for the government to verify them. Crazy Thompson and myself invited Minister Laroda over. He agreed that what they ought to do is to verify really before they take persons off. Now I understand that for some folks it's gotten better, for others they are still waiting because the system is slow. So in the meantime, the Free National Movement members of Parliament, we provide vouchers. So we just let you know, we're not asking you, that we're not going to stampede in any way. But where there's a shortfall, we try our best to offer assistance as a stopgap measure. But yes, the government should try to help seniors.
Currently, the Grand Mohammed is evident that the industrial clients like the shipyard are thriving, but the local tourism and small business sector. Does your party have a specific tax incentive policy that could introduce to ensure that the wealth generated by industrial investment is funneled into our local businesses rather than leaving the island as corporate profit?
So two things. We have these things called heads of agreement. And in the heads of agreement, most responsible international companies are willing to help the local community. I don't know if any time Quincy has reviewed any of them, these companies are fighting, say, oh no, we don't want to give. It's not the case. They want to contribute. But they want the resources to go to where the government and them agree it should go. The problem is we don't have any accountability on where the money goes. And so what we say is in every heads of agreement, we should ensure that the need in the community is is identified for the company to address when we sign on. So each Grand Bahama, there's need for community centers. That should be in the heads of agreement for anything going in the East. There's a need for an agriculture fund because the majority of leased land for manufacturing and agriculture is in the East. We can build that into a heads of agreement. So that's what we will do. Secondly, we'll do something that has not been done. We will put in place a project management team. Many Bahamians are now qualified in project management who can trace whether or not the government or the international company is living up to its obligation as identified in the heads of agreement. So I leave you with one example. We put in place a policy in agriculture that 40% of all foods that are sold in the Bahamas, food store, restaurants, hotels, must be bought from a Bahamian before a hotel, restaurant, or food store can buy the same item from out of the country. That is not at all being followed. Secondly, 70 cents of every dollar, 70% of all food the government buys for the corrections institution and the prison, for Ministry of Education, for all the food in the hospital, was first be bought from the Bahamian agriculturalists. That's not followed. If that was followed, we'd be able to create multiple millionaires right now in this room. If you know that every cabbage, tomatoes, as long as the price makes sense, you can produce the right amount of quantity and quality that you're going to be able to sell. I mean, again, you will dedicate your time to it. Unfortunately, that policy is not being followed.
Okay.
Yes. The second thing is, when we were in government, we recognized that I believe the figure was around 65% of the services provided to a ship that comes here is done by subcontractors. So we were attempting to get Bahamian companies to join that pool of subcontractors who can provide that service. So that the shipyard discussion is not just about getting jobs, but it's about owning one of those subcontracting companies or collaborating with others in order to provide those services. We will work day and night to create ownership. That's what we're committed to.
And I say this facetiously as people who are not in the government and parliament and the cabinet. Could you, as a government, if you win, include in the heads of agreement that these high-end industrial companies provide ambulances and fire trucks?
Yes, that's about that. All of that can be in the heads of agreement.
But it has not been done before.
No, but it's worse than that. Even when persons have donated fire truck and ambulances, there can be someone in government who should never be in government that can stop it from being delivered to the community. That has happened on more than one occasion.
So can we then safely assume that stoppage of a particular equipment like that did not happen under the FNF?
Not to my knowledge. However, in the not too distant future, at least one constituency will identify some things that did not happen under the FNF.
Is there any consideration, would any consideration be given by your administration if you become the government to either reducing or eliminating VAT on insurance premiums?
We have no difficulty with that. That is one of those. In fact, recently the government suggested, they nudged very strongly the insurance sector to invest in government securities. We promise you, we would invite you to invest in our securities, your securities. However, insurance companies may wish better returns or different returns by going elsewhere. And we do not believe government should strong arm private companies to force them to get government security. That's a problem. But what we do believe is that private companies that are here in the Bahamas making money, you should be able to buy shares in them. And we wish to stop the practice that you cannot invest in companies that are making money in the Bahamas. If I want to buy shares in Atlantis and they're being traded internationally, or Canada, or any of those, the Bahamians should have a right to invest in those companies.
So, unless I missed it, what's the answer about VAT being taken off the ever-increasing cost of all types of insurance?
We are willing to support that. We have a lot of insurance.
Let me just put it this way. When your yearly insurance premium is creeping up on your mortgage payment, that's a human problem. When your health insurance is almost surpassing your monthly expenses, that is a problem. And these are, and one of the things that I wanted the community Brother Muhammad to be very clear on, for me this is not a political exercise. This is an exercise of issues that you're going to face if you're FNM, PLP, COI, or no I, or no C, or no F, or no E. It does not matter. We all have a challenge with the VAT being attached to an institution that we can't control. We can't control insurance companies. When the government adds VAT on top of that, that is really a problem.
And right beginning, we really should have a discussion around insurance. Talking with each other and working out how we can increase the number of homeowners who have insurance. A number of us went through that horrible experience with Dorian, and one of the most painful things after Dorian, in addition to the loss of life and the loss of property, etc., was some families were able to rebuild because of insurance. And some, particularly seniors who had stopped paying the insurance, were unable to rebuild well. And I believe that's a discussion the government has to take personally and get involved with helping the residents so that we never have this kind of generational loss that we have experienced as a result of Dorian. Many people could not start over.
I heard a stat on the news today about the increase in kidney issues in the country, hypertension, diabetes. I know what I'm going to say, but the question that I'm asking on behalf of the submitter is a bit of a thin line. If your party becomes the government, are you prepared to increase the duty on unhealthy foods coming into the country?
Yeah, will we be interested in introducing a sin tax on certain types of food? Yes.
I'm trying to decide if I should think about the word sin. So you are quite aware then, if that move is made, we're talking about Cheetos, we're talking about fire, steak, we're talking about sausage. I just wondering what the government had to force. This is the foresight. This is what needs to be done. This is an old discussion in government. And the question was, what do you start with? Because obviously no government is coming in. And all, since most of what is in front of us are unhealthy, no government is coming in and saying all of these things. But you have to then prioritize what are those items. So for example, there's no way in the world we should be continuing to be serving some of the things we do to children that's in school. But there are some items that when you prioritize, then you should just start with this one, and then we'll go to this one, and we'll go to that one. So we have to look at the items, benefit from the experts in the healthcare sector, and then identify them. But obviously it's not going to be a universal thing, all things that are not good for you. We have to be the food store. Many behaving consumers and small business owners feel they are effectively paying about twice the purchasing items on platforms like Amazon once at checkout in the game and the item arrives in the office. Do you see this as a policy issue, and what specific reforms would your government implement if you became the government? So that has been raised during our discussion of our platform. So we're going to trust the smart people on our team who says there is a remedy to the sort of double charging persons. And so we're going to, again, benefit from that advice and address it. Is it reasonable for us to believe in the Bahamas that we would ever be able to have lower cost for electricity? Is that reasonable or is it totally similar?
Yes, several people in this room may have been paying not for electricity, they have solar panels. It is definitely possible. The present energy reform the government is engaged in cannot get you there. In New Providence and the Family Islands, if you look at the surcharge, if you look at what you are paying for your electricity, you are paying more today than you paid in 2021. When we put in place the hedge program, again, we locked in the price, so you could predict. I think it was 10.5 cents. We were able to lock that in because we bought the oil on the international market at a particular price. We locked that in for a period. So each time we renew the trade, that price was locked in. If you didn't lock it in, then because that cost is passed on to you, whenever the cost goes up in the international market, you're affected. When it goes down, you're affected. We believe that all of the sensible things you do in the energy space together, working together, improves the cost of electricity to you. One of those things was the hedge program. So when people said, listen, it was inevitable that prices were going to go up when this government came in, we said no. We had at least one example of something we did that locked in prices and improves things for us. Now, we do support what the government is doing with respect to renewable energy, particularly those companies that they went out, that they gave a request for proposal and they bid on providing to the government solar power. That's not new. We left the same plan in place, so this is a continuation of that program. Solarization can, in fact, bring down the cost. We want to increase the amount that any citizen is able to self-generate and be able to sell back to the grid. Now, a part of why there's a need to fix the grid is so that it's not unstable. When you generate power more than you need, you can sell it back to the grid. The problem with this administration is that they entered into an agreement with one consortium. They didn't put it out to tender. They took the assets that all of us have paid for years, suffered when it was bad, and didn't benefit a whole lot when it was good, because we had to pay. And they put it in the hands of one consortium. What an FLN government would do differently is we believe, one, the government should always have a stake in our assets. One. Two, you should be able to buy shares. Not at $49,000. Because if you wanted to buy shares in New Providence, you have to pay $49,000 and you couldn't buy shares. So when you ask, what would we do different? We want you to have shares. If we privatize, if we take a piece of land and we make that land available to a foreign entity and the government has a stake in that, we don't just want the sovereign, the government, to have a stake. You should have the ability to buy in as well. And that's what we are committed to. Making sure that the Haitians are able to buy in. So the Sovereign Wealth Fund is something we will, in fact, put in place in the Senate when we first passed it. It's not the best piece of legislation. We're now in the House Crazy 9, the National Investment Fund. The government has put that in place. Honestly, it is confusing in terms of what it's doing for the Bahamian people. So we believe we need a best-in-class sovereign wealth fund.
We have throughout the Bahamas several models of this type of tourism that Celebration Key, where it is obvious that that type of tourist attraction is not overflowing into the general communities at the rate the other types of arrivals do. What is your philosophy on that, and will those types of ventures be increased under your administration?
We do not intend to be approving a series of private islands for cruise ships. We do not believe that that is ideal for the Bahamas. Our preference is that any future development that we are approving, that we prefer to be on a landmass where resources can spread more easily to those populations. That's the first thing. The one thing that the cruise ships miss is their business model is incredible. Nobody in this cruise like driving the English, right? So they give you the free soft serve ice cream, and since you're right next door to the milkshake place, you slip inside and you get it ready, and then they say, give us your card. No, the worst one is, you go and get the free pizza. And all the soda machine and the juice machine is right there. You move the pizza and go looking for the cup. And we say, sorry, where are the cups? Go over there and buy the drink package, and then you can come back and get the drink to go with the pizza. Yeah, different model. But the model isn't working for us, save and except for jobs for the most part. So we want to make sure that more persons in this room can set up attractions that are world class, that you can encourage persons to come and take advantage of those attractions. So that's one of the things we will do. The Tourism Development Corporation has the money to assist many persons. The other thing we want to do, and this is the most important thing, we have to increase stock over business. More of us in here need to form hotels that are 5 rooms, 10 rooms, 20 rooms to increase the inventory. That's extremely important. Some of us working together can do 40 rooms or 50 rooms. And even more of us can do even more. And so the biggest thing we have to do is increase the number of stock over visitors. And that's what we are working on, a strategic plan for that. And that's what we keep saying to the Minister of the Minister of Tourism, that it's important for him to focus on stopover rather than cruise.
Beyond the development of the hospital, the airport, and Run Retire Hotel, or the sale of it, what specific incentive, initiative that you have, if you become the government, for a long-term economic growth?
Putting if this is Grand Bahama's economy, you have to put more legs under the economy, like the chair that you're in. We need more legs. One leg is the tech hub, making sure we attract more local and international technology businesses here that can set up here and do business not just locally, but mostly do business overseas. That's one leg. The agriculture leg, we import $1 billion worth of food. If you are producing eggs, chicken, turkey, you are able in 2.5 years, the Bahamas, to be self-sufficient. We left a complete study in place. We're now 4.5 years in, and $23 million in, and we are not producing, that's just eggs. We can do the same thing in salad crops and other fruits and vegetables. Before we were kicked out of office, we identified the 77 items that we could produce cost-effectively for people in the world. So that's another leg. Fish dying of old age in the Bahamas, certain species of fish. The majority of the fish consumed in the Bahamas are imported. The vast majority. Atlantis, Bahama, and every other hotel, imported. So we have to empower fishers to, again, capture, process, and sell to the hotels and restrict food stores, hotels from buying the same item that they can buy locally. So that's another leg we can put on the economy. The orange economy, whether it's dance, songs, plays, movies for small screen, not the big screen, we have the potential to earn hundreds of millions of dollars every year. It isn't just Jamaica that have all this talent, so do we. But we have not put the resources in the right place to empower the areas.
We've heard about food sufficiency now, I would say, for maybe a decade and a half. But when you begin to hear the breakdown of the budget assignments, agriculture almost always comes last. So what is your plan to remove agriculture from the bottom of the scale to almost equaling some of the other significant ministry areas in the country?
You just have to reallocate, restructure the budget.
But even under the last administration that you were in, it was still down the bottom.
That's how I ended up in the ministry.
Oh, that's why you got it, because
God, I'm grateful. Thank God. For getting me in the room around the table. Please, Edit that out. No, you just reallocate more resources to what will help generate opportunities for the country.
Okay, so
who the Minister of Finance will do that.
and I'm saying, how do you, and you've done it here, how do you promote to a nation food sufficiency, but you're still presenting to a nation a budget where the agriculture number is so insignificant?
We will change that. No, we will change that.
No, that's correct.
That's all right. I'm an agriculturist. Associates degree in planning, so I decided to bachelor's degree in planning.
No, what the record?
Yes,
That's what agriculture.
Yes,
What that record is, agriculture will move up a lot.
We'll move up.
Yeah.
In the name of Jesus. We'll move up. And get you all out. I'm voting. You manage your whole house.
You mentioned some degree in incentives. Well, what specifically would be offered for small businesses to survive?
I indicated $100 million in grants will be made available. The venture capital fund will have additional resources to buy shares in businesses. They take an equity stake. Their experts will be on your board to give you advice and to help you navigate businesses. We will also work with banks. In a lot of countries, commercial banks have a small, and medium-sized business department that focuses on helping businesses succeed. So we want to work with the clearing banks. Say, listen, this is in your interest. A micro business today can be a small, medium, or large business in the years to come. And so they can grow with you. So we want to work. We believe in collaboration and consulting in advance of making decisions. That's what we are committed to.
In the Bahamas, we are being raped with our eyes wide open, all our clothes off, and we're put in all kinds of positions. The bankies are running us ridiculously broke. First of all, is the government able to regulate what the fee range should be? That's the first question. Well, let's answer that first and then I'll follow.
So the short answer is the bank, the Central Bank of the Bahamas, in conjunction with the government of the Bahamas and the clearing banks, have meetings. And so we have been engaged in that discussion. Some of you may recall, we released our position on banking. We said in the Bahamas, the spread in interest rate is too wide and is not in our favor as a country. Meaning, the bank gives you next to nothing. I mean, next to nothing on your deposits. But they make a lot of money when they lend money, so the spread is too wide. So we have raised that issue with the governor of the central bank, and you may remember an exchange between us and now on something as the clearing bank. We also believe that the various fees that are charged, they do not always declare all the layers of fees that undergird their transactions. And so for us, when we raised the criticism, we gave examples of other countries and how they have put in place their fee structure. We were criticized immediately, but the governor of the central bank then came out, several of us met with the governor, and he came out and made some statements that supported the view that we have put forward, that there are ways in which the bank can change their fee structure that benefits our behaviors, particularly digital transactions where there is less cost on the work they have to do to provide service. And so we are absolutely committed to continuing to work with the clearing banks and the central bank to bring down the rate. The other thing we said is that our brothers and sisters in Central and South Andros and other islands who don't have a brick and mortar plant deserve to have one. So we asked some of the questions we work in Ministry of Finance before, roughly what does the banks pay in taxes to the government? So we got a back of envelope, $2 to $5 million. If we say we're now prepared to sing about this, we are going to make sure you do not lose. At a minimum, the worst case scenario, you will break even. but we need a structure that carries out through the agency process. You can do it, or somebody else can do it, but we need a brick and mortar structure. You can't keep your money under the mattress or at home. It's security when you transfer it, etc. So apart from buying fees, we are also looking to incentivize banks so we have a brick and mortar structure. We will work on eliminating the post office banking system. We believe that it is inefficient, it is being misused on both ends by customers and others. And so we wish to get out of that business. We do the private sector, we can do a far better job. And so many of you Christians don't have to go to a certain type of business to send money from this island to some this island. So, that helped them with connection with church too fast. Because when they send money, they say, oh, I had this vision last night. This real. Getting back to my question, what I did not hear you say is yes. Yes. No, you did not say yes. I said that the time that the government could dictate or regulate to the bank that the fees are high, so do something about it. You almost sound give an answer that says you are negotiating, you are appealing, and you are. So literally then, the government does not have the authority to say to the banking system in the country, you cannot increase these fees and these rates. We are saying that approach, we believe, is not necessary, that we are able to work with the clearing banks and work with the central bank to regulate fees in a way that they don't behave differently in the Bahamas than they do in other jurisdictions. That is what we are prepared to do, and we believe that will happen. If we are running into problems, and that spread remains what it is, we're getting fees that others are not getting, then the government will be more heavy-handed. But we don't believe, we're not like the other fellas, we don't believe we need to start that discussion there.
Okay, so would it then be fair for me to say, and if it's not fair, you can tell me?
To cause to happen, yes.
No. It's fair for me then to say that you are more cautious with stroking the back of the bankers than you are concerned about the average stroker on the street.
No. What I'm prepared to say is that we believe in a business environment. Persons are in business to make profit. If they wish to make profit in the Bahamas, we are saying we don't want to make that at the expense of citizens. Here, we know what you are doing in Dominica and Antigua. We know what you're doing in Canada. We expect no less the same kind of practices here. And so that's how we are going to approach the banking issue. And we believe that if the Canadian banks are not prepared to make adjustments, we're prepared to work more favorably with Commonwealth Bank, with the Bank of the Bahamas, with the local banks. We also believe more behavior should be able to apply to banking licenses and charge them rent. And so, if one bank is not doing it right, you just go to the other bank. And we believe you'll be successful with it. See, some other fellas is coming, they talk tough. I heard some people talk tough on immigration when they was in opposition, and then they got in government and they start turning a blind eye to fraudulent passports. That's what I'm saying is we want to be measured and honest when we talk to people. Right? So we're not coming out the gate and saying we say no. We say we do more transactions online so you don't have to pay when I move money from one account and one bank from another. When they told me I was in charge of the deposit that, I said, the devil is alive. I refuse to deposit that in the money. I made a decision. So I want to educate the Indians as well how to use this banking system to your advantage while we are getting them to adjust what we believe are onerous fees that they are putting on our bank. And we'll get them to adjust that risk.
Okay, I simply lift my opinion. I believe then, based on the answer that you gave, that we can expect to continue to be through the rules until there is some appeasement that can be made.
No appeasement. We will cause it to happen. I'm failing. You will try.
the White House is still going on. I said this too. We had this conversation about 10 years ago. The banks treat us, it's the same repeat of the master-slave system when it comes to banking in this country. And it almost appears that the government has left the citizens of the country on their we will not do that. We will not do that. Please come back with first report. The one reason or another. That's why you can make sure we hear something like that. The court system will in any way increase its efficiency. Yes. Based on working with the Chief Justice so that they have better case management. That is, in fact, the majority of what is required to fix the judiciary in the Bahamas does not require money according to the report and the studies they have done. Mr. Johnson. And so, again, it is the Chief Justice along with the executive who is the co-equal and does not involve the judiciary working in tandem with each other. Also, the government allocating the required resources to also improve the part of the judiciary that it is responsible for. So, whether it's conditions under which persons are working, the number of persons that the government hires, etc., we can contribute. You also need qualified prosecutors and we need ethical actors, on both sides of the law. And so let me just speak more and plainly. A part of the problem we are having right now in the Bahamas in terms of the administration of the law and order in the Bahamas, apart from a broken system, we have some bad actors in the system as well. And we do not have an executive today, and I was trying to say to you not to be as partisan, we do not have an executive today in charge of the country that is prepared to change what is happening in the criminal justice system. I want to give this example. We are signing contracts in the Bahamas today with persons who are still in the life they were in before. This is not second chance contracts. These are people who are still involved in illegal business. And the Commonwealth of the Bahamas government is signing contracts with those individuals. And what they would shout to me in Pablo otherwise would say, well, if you know somebody is doing something, we'll go report it to the police. That's the response, not that they don't know what we know. You live in Grand Bahama. You've seen election cycles. You know who some of the fellas are who drive 3 cars come election time to support a candidate or another. And I'm saying we have set a different tool in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I've asked 2 commissioners of police, including the present one, that you put up on the screen all of the guns you take off the street, the drugs you take off the street, and those young black men primarily who are locked up. They work for a fellow, who work for a fellow, who work for a fellow, who work for a fellow, who's sitting down at a table like this with a permanent secretary or government official signing a big multi-million-dollar contract. Sometimes the party is nearby observing the proceedings. How do you reconcile that you are observing a contract being signed with somebody who's a person of interest to you in a case that's not a cold case? How do you countenance that? I'm a member of this society. Like, you want me to be cute because that's the right thing to do politically, and you look prime mysterious that you talk in a responsible way. You can do that, but it doesn't change the fact that you and I know some criminals who are signing contracts with government and a legitimate contractor to go to them to get a subcontract. So we don't have, in my view, we don't have executive that's prepared to be different. Let me give you a final example. We had a robbery, and forgive me if a relative of yours perished in this process. We had a robbery in New Providence, and I gave $1.4 million. Since that time, at least 3 of the witnesses have been murdered. I'm advised
that one person who some folks were looking for shot and killed 3 persons on the street that I used to live in Fox, and 3 other persons died. I understand that there was 1 other person who died in retaliation for the 3 who were murdered. So let's just say we're off by 1 or more of our loved ones. At least 5 or 6 persons have been murdered in relation to 1 robbery. A case that has not yet been tried in the Bahamas. So important to me as the leader of the country that case would have been. I would have appealed, I would have talked with the Chief Justice. So many things are affected by this case not being adjudicated. Can we find a pathway to move with a sense of urgency in moving this case through? Because now we can fix some things in law enforcement. We can fix some things in the judiciary. So I'm saying we are not serious about shaking any tree to make any bad apples fall. It's rhetoric.
So, in light of what you just said, when you implement this Ombudsman Act, what will protect an individual or a body or a board or a commission from interferences when they call your telephone number?
What will protect them?
From you, I only say you sensitive.
No, it's sensitive.
So I don't call the prime minister.
Yes.
What will they have that will prevent you from saying, drop that matter?
I have constituents in Marcos, and unfortunately some will be on the side of the accused and some will be on the side of the victim. When somebody calls to say, my child is locked up on a matter, can you intervene? The extent of my intervention is really identifying a lawyer that might be able to go and give assistance. It isn't to pick up the phone and find out which officer was in that night to say, that's my graduate. I need you to look the other way. So I'm just saying, the way I have operated my life, like some other people, I know some gangsters. But when I'm among those gangsters, they don't see me as one of them. I can tell you that is the case with a number of policymakers. I want your influence, but I want you in a different life. I don't want you to stay in the life you're in so you can maintain the influence of the 50 voters die.
Let's go back to my question. Will the act that you will implement within the first year of administration prevent, whether it's the Prime Minister, some dignitary?
It doesn't prevent. Human beings will be who they are, but it will address it. The act will address those kinds of issues. But let me tell you what we really need, in addition to that.
So
you need a commission of inquiry in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas around some of these issues. You have to get to the bottom of how to fix a system that is broken.
So then the appointment of the ombudsman is fruitless.
No, it's not.
No,
that will do its job. But I'm saying to you, so serious are the matters as it relates to immigration in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We need to know whether the gatekeepers who we have put in place are doing their job.
but it's obvious that they don't.
Okay, and so I'm saying there's a need for us to have the kinds of inquiry that can call for witnesses, for individuals, for papers, and to protect witnesses so that they can share information on whether we have the wrong gatekeepers in place. And we're prepared to take that decision.
Is there a plan in your administration to build more in Bahamas?
It is our plan to finish the mall, which is not a complex exercise. You and I, with our limited construction experience, can do that. And we will make sure we pay whoever we hire in order to finish it. We need to pay the folks so that they can go and finish the job. So clearly the government isn't paying this bill. Go and pay the minimum. Any small contractors in here who did home repairs and haven't been paid yet because they pay well.
You don't want to see the amount of people here who haven't been paid for the government. You don't want to see that. Is it true that the members of Parliament receive approximately $3 million per term for the constituency?
$750 1,000 times 5. And what is done with them? In your case, how did you use it? A variety of things. Let me say it this way. I have always spent twice whatever the government allocation, a minimum of twice of what the government allocation. Always. And any member of my community is free to see the declaration of what we do. So if you have a member of parliament telling you or ask finance and they will see, that's the problem.
So is there is that monitored, is that regulated, is there accountability that when it's issued to parliament?
Well, let's just say some are more accountable than others.
Does the system require accountability?
I do not believe the system is as strict as it ought to be. No.
Does the system require
It requires accountability, but I am saying on the record, we do not believe that this is a system that is working. And we've invited, including all of our members, and all of the difficulties with that. I've always spent a minimum of twice of what has been allocated.
As we know right now, the airport. We've heard so many stories of the airport. We've had grandiose plans and talks and so on. Would you just give us grassroots answers as to what will happen in the airport and the administration is part of this?
The plans that we left in place, we will follow those plans. We believe that there are sufficient groups that are available to fund the airport through a public-private partnership. We will, again, issue a request for proposal and entertain groups that are coming with a proposal in order to build. We will entertain groups who will come to operate, because they may very well be different. In this case, we know that the construction company that the government is talking about, that consortium, is different than the Manchester group, which is a reputable operator, and they operate at least 3 of the 5 airports in the UK at the moment. We have no difficulty with them. Again, so if we are starting with a clean slate, a request for proposal for companies interested in a public-private partnership, and we will do it before, we've done it before, we will vet through a group that will be established, and we will select the best option that have the best rate of interest we have to pay back for the use of that money, and we will put in place a reputable operator. We will attract other companies that can set up here in Grand Bahama as a logistical hub to, again, do consolidation packages, give you a spot where products can move from Latin America to Caribbean to North America or to Europe or vice versa. So that's in a simple way, that's what we'll do. You will know what the architectural drawings look like, whether it will be in the same location or move to a slightly elevated place. You will know whether or not, and this is what we believe, there is a need to build berms that can reduce the impact of waves hitting assets in Freeport, and we should look to work with local and global companies on how we will fund those berms. We know that one of the most popular formulas is through escalation of fill, using the money, the revenue generated from that in order to build berms. So we have to reimagine what we will do to protect a low-lying island like Grand Bahama. Those are the big projects that this country should apply its mind to, rather than what we are experiencing now with 5, 6 different formulas that this government has shared with the public, none of which have come to fruition.
You mentioned several times you're trimming in agriculture, farming, and the likes. What system is in the country that regulates, manages the quality of food that's important?
BASCO, Mountains Agricultural Safety, food authority. They let their competent persons who are employed in the organization.
I mean, those assistants, are they as efficient as most of the government ministries are?
I think my experience with them is that they are more efficient, but they do not have sufficient funding, in my view, to provide oversight for the cross-border movement of livestock, of animal and plant, not just livestock, because they also would monitor animals to some extent, largely because diseases will travel from animals you don't eat, at least publicly, and then animals that you actually eat. So again, VASCO needs additional funding, but I have confidence in that agency. That's a very talented people.
So this could be another scenario where the gatekeepers may not be doing the job efficiently because of the lack of.
I mean, to give you an example, are you referring to products that are for export only?
No, I'm speaking about the importation of foods from the major suppliers from around the world that comes into the country. Is there someone watching the borders in reference to the food quality that comes in?
Yeah, so there is an agency that I certainly have confidence in, but they are under-resourced. Absolutely under-resourced. So would there be items that make it in that shouldn't? I would not be in the slightest way surprised. But we have to expand their reach. Also, police officers are extension of BASCO, in a sense, and they are also extension of the fisheries. So a police officer can detect something coming into the country, or a defense force officer, and can function in the capacity to again get involved in that situation. That also requires more training, and unfortunately we don't use sufficient of that force training.
This will be my last question unless something unusual comes up or pops up and I get comes to my screen. If your government wins this next election, are you going to pick up on the rhetoric of building the new hospital on Prospect Ridge?
We have said we voted against that particular project. There isn't any, there's nothing in the ground at the moment. I do not believe they're going to do anything before the election. We are going to return to the original plan we had, which has been left in place in this government, should have read, obviously have read, they've abandoned. We are going to return to the original plan. We listen to the experts. There is no health-related organization in the country that supports what this government is doing. The Doctors Association, the Nurses Association, all are of a different view. We are listening to the experts. So the short answer is no. We met with the Chinese government and we indicated to them we have no difficulty doing business with the Chinese government. They, like the Americans, are our friends, but we do not support this move. There are other areas where they will have opportunities to do business with an administration led by myself. The hospital is not one of them. And they should not feel badly about that, because they are excellent in technology, excellent in agriculture, they are excellent in the energy sector, fastest producers of electric cars and of equipment. And so we have a couple of opportunities to do business with them. The hospital is definitely is not one of them.
Well, let's give Mr. Penta.
Are there any questions that was not asked that the burning question for you?
Well, that's going to really show. I'm not convinced that the audience is that disciplined. And that's part of the reason why we didn't treat it this way. Yeah. And if we did that, we won't get our neighbors. But what I can do, you're more than welcome to hang on.
I will answer all the excuses. We want to keep it going, so we stay there.
So, again, I want to give you thank you.
Thank you very much.
As Captain Word, we've been talking about this for 2 years.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dobson, you were part of that.